Hello and welcome to my first ever development log for a game that I've been working on for a number of years now. I've got some industry experience working as a developer in a few different companies, and I worked as a VR developer for 4 years. So basically using Unity every day and kind of worked on this in my spare time. So yeah, I'll just kind of jump in and kind of go through what I've been working on. So kind of just give a little bit of background as to what I'm working on right now. Sorry, I will just disable this for a second. So I think before we jump in, I'll kind of just go through what the game's about. So you may be wondering why didn't I start a development log earlier in the development process. I'm quite far through now. And the reason for that really is that I'm never really happy with how the game looks. There's always improvements to be made, and even now there's lots of like glaring issues. Right, we have some horrible text floating. This model's not finished. This UI in the middle, bit weird. I'm kind of like using a sprite that shouldn't be there. Misaligned things here. This is just a box room for development. The lighting's wrong. You know, blah blah blah. So it's easy to be your own critic, right? And I think for years I've never really been comfortable kind of showing the game off. And it's kind of reaching a point now where quite a few of the systems in the game are finished. So what is the game about? So essentially, the storyline is that you are a small monkey-like creature trapped in a zoo, and you need to escape from the zoo from like horrible creatures and scientific experiments and things like that. So the main gameplay is it's going to be parkour focus, lots of free running, things like that. There's going to be a really in-depth weapon combat system. So think like Breath of the Wild or something like that, where you can pick weapons up off enemies, disarm them, use shields and parries and things like that. The enemies can disarm you. Enemies can use all the weapons. You can use all of the enemies' weapons, etc. And then on top of that as well, there's like a sort of puzzle element to it. So it's going to be a little bit like a Metroidvania, Souls type game, but there's a wiring system as well, where you can kind of like wire props and turrets and security cameras, blah, 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 blah. So we'll basically just kind of go through some of the fundamentals of like what the game's about. So this is my sort of feature test area, and I like keeping this empty, or as empty as possible, because otherwise I just seem to get distracted and just keep like sort of, I suppose, like QA testing my game and seeing if it's fun, and you can waste hours basically just replaying your own levels. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm just going to kind of show you. So obviously, like disclaimer, there are levels that I've made that are prettier. They have nice lighting and music and audio reverb zones and all that stuff. But like, I'm not here to convince you that my game's pretty. I'm here to show you the mechanics and that the mechanics work. And then we'll start going into what I'm currently working on and kind of some of the pitfalls and blah blah blah. So I guess the first thing I'll show you is just the movement system. So you can jump, obviously, and it's a bit like Mario. If you hold jump for longer, you jump higher, and you'll see in the middle there's a little counter, so I can do a triple jump basically. I can also dash in 4 directions, like Doom Eternal. Shameless Doom Eternal plug, best game ever made, or one of them at least. And the game's kind of going to take inspiration from Doom. It's going to take inspiration from Team Fortress, Portal, Half-Life. I'm a massive Valve nerd. It's going to be a bit Abe's Odyssey-like as well. So I want the player to feel a little bit powerless, and like they're kind of trapped in this like overwhelming situation in this factory. So there's going to be like lots of puzzles and levers and things like that as well. And then I kind of just want it to be a little bit insane and over the top as well, but we'll get into that. So anyway, yeah, so we've got these different movement things here. If you touch a wall, you will slide down it, and you can sort of fire and aim while you're sliding down. If you slide down a wall and you look at the wall, you'll fall down it instantly, because kind of why not, right? Kind of makes sense. Like why would you look at the wall if you're in a combat situation unless you wanted to slide down? We also have wall jumping, which doesn't consume a jump. So you see I use one jump there, and then the wall jumps are free, which is what you want. Also wall sliding. So I can kind of go across the walls like that. And then we have these dashes, and then we also take fall damage if we jump off the edge, but we can also do a ground pound, right? So if I press this, and we smash into the floor, we don't take fall damage if we do a ground pound. So I'm just going to through here. Now, if we ground pound into a ramp, we'll conserve the momentum and smash, bang, bang, and we'll smash into all those baddies. So that's cool. There's lots of little physics props around the scene as well. So we've got like this bounce pad here, and these little suckers which will pull you this way. Now this is nice because it's all deterministic, right? So I've kind of set this little ramp up here. I'm going to pound, and I'm just going to let go of my keyboard and mouse. I'm just going to smash through there. So there's elements of kind of like Warrior Land or Pizza Tower in there as well. It's a real mishmash of different sort of genres. I want it to be quite arcadey and things like that. So that's most of the movement system. And then the sort of creme de la creme, the last thing is the grappling hook. Now, lots of games have grappling hooks in, and I feel like they're always really overpowered. They kind of just pull you to where you want to be. Now, I kind of want to reward, you know, like mastery of weapons, and there's lots of movement systems with the weapons. So I figured if the grappling hook just kind of pulled you wherever you wanted, what would be the point in using any of the cool things at your disposal? So the grappling hook, it's very much just like a rigid rope. So you have to use your momentum. So if I do this, there's not much elasticity to it, and I can't really walk away any further. But I can kind of use... Oh. Let's see if I can... There we go. So see, I'm stuck to this wall. I can kind of jump out from this wall, fire another one. Can't quite reach that one. Oh, you get sucked up by that little vacuum thing there. So yeah, you can kind of like you can kind of do a bit of a Tarzan swing if you get used to it. And then one of the coolest things, at least that I think that I'm quite happy with, is the grapple. You can fire at the floor, pull away, and there's kind of an elastic tension to it. So if I jump now, I can actually jump and then release and kind of, you know, just fling myself at things. Which I think is quite a novel idea. It takes a little bit of practice. So that's kind of the movement system in a nutshell. So we've got 8 weapon slots down here, and we can hold Q to switch between them as well. So I'm going to pick up a few weapons. I know some of these are quite ugly. I need to pay a 3D modeler, but I have no money. So we'll pick up some of these. And there's some fairly novel ideas in here. So we've got the oh, this is a campfire, by the way. Think Dark Souls. So once you unlock one of these, it will heal fully, recharge all of your energy. It will save the game, and it'll act as a fast travel point, and probably a shop in the future. So just a few of the weapons we have. This is the bellows, the flame bellows, and you can basically get a weapon and you can drop it on the floor with the R key. But if you hold the R key, you can throw your weapon, and this barrel will explode when thrown. Or you can also fire this and then throw it, and it will spew fire at things. It will explode on impact, and you can shoot it as well. So say an enemy is holding that weapon, you can shoot it out the hands and hurt them, which is kind of cool. We've got a rocket launcher. It's a primary fire. Rockets, obviously. You can also fire sticky bombs, and they don't damage you. Think Team Fortress, sticky jumping. You can also do rocket jumping, or you can leave these to prime, and now they do damage. So you can get quite creative with these sticky bombs. And then the third mode is you can fire out this black hole, and it carries everything with it. So kind of merge all the different firing modes together to do some cool things. We have this. This is the bubble bat. So the bubble bat is essentially, it does no damage, but if you charge it up, a bit like Smash Brothers. Apologies for that. Someone turned up and the dog started barking, so we're back. We're back to it. So yeah, this is the bubble bat, and you can basically charge it up, a bit like Super Smash Brothers. It kind of makes the thing do damage when it smashes into a wall. I'll show you what I mean. They're a bit too heavy. So these guys, for example, then they sort of become lethal as you hit them into something. Then you can knock them into spikes as well, which is kind of cool. So, what else we got? We have the shield, which blocks shots from enemies. Oh, I forgot to mention that. You can jump on things and bounce off them and do damage, a bit like Mario. If you hold jump, you bounce slightly higher, which is cool. We have the chameleon head. The chameleon's probably one of my favourite weapons, because it basically said there's like a weapon that you want to pick up. I need to drop something on the floor, so I will throw this. That pops and stuns everything when you throw it. Machine gun. So I'll do that again, just to sort of demonstrate. So yeah, I can steal that off things. It's quite a boring weapon. It's just a machine gun. That's all it is. So I've kind of disabled all of the enemies at the moment because I'm currently working on revamping the entire enemy AI system. So pretty much every enemy in the entire game is currently broken. And I thought this would be a great place to start the development log because I'm kind of rewriting the system from the ground up. So, you know. So yeah, we can throw it at them to damage them. And then we have the scythe. Yeah, and the scythe, basically it's the only way to get health back in the game apart from health pickups. Think a bit like Doom. I'm trying to encourage players to get up close and personal. With the scythe you can block and deflect attacks as well, which is super nice. Which I'll demonstrate soon. I can't right now because the enemies are disabled. Have a landmine. And then the nice thing is you can sort of combine these things. So I've got a landmine. Oh. Yeah, there we go. So you can sort of combine weapons in some fairly unique and interesting ways. You know, I can... I can also charge this up. Yeah. And then comes to the wiring tool. The wiring tool is probably where like most of the puzzles are going to sort of stem from. But you'll see that we have here different like electronic devices kicking around. So we have like this sort of thingy here, this like sucker thing. What I'll do, I'm just going to enable a cheat so I can sort of demonstrate it. I can fire a rocket into there. It gets stuck until it blows up, and then it gets released. And there's a bounce pad here, and you'll notice that like all of these different electronic things. So we have a dispenser here that you can sort of interact with, and it like drops things out of there. But you'll notice that they all have one of these little node things, these little nodules. So basically, what this means is it requires power for it to work. So you'll notice here that this one's turned on because there's power going into it. Now you get batteries. Laying around certain levels, and basically I can snip the power from there and I can rewire that, and these are basically just relays. So all the relays, it's essentially saying if power's going in, you can pull another wire out of it and extend that. So I can, you know, kind of extend this here. So what I could do is like snip this, rewire that through to there, and plug it into one of these. So let's get a little bit closer. There we go. Now this one's turned on, and you can get creative. You know, you can, because I think the relay, yeah, it supports 2 outputs, so you can get this relay, and then one battery can power 2 different things. Oh god, I'm really bad at this. Sorry. I'm probably going to do some sort of snapping thing to make it a little bit easier. And then you can get creative. So, for example, we have AND gates here. So all of the inputs all have to be on. So essentially, you can create logic gates. These are all gates. You know, anything goes in and it's on. All the outputs are on, right? So if you're familiar with like some basic programming concepts, you can kind of create some interesting contraptions. And then there's different ones here. So, for example, we have pressure plates. So if I plug this pressure plate directly into here, turned off and I can't interact with it. I stand on it and it enables the thing, so I'll put one of those down and now we can use this and it drops one of these guys. So an interesting feature of the wiring system is that all of these wires are actually really dangerous, so if an enemy or anything or you touch them, you get electrocuted, you take damage and you drop your weapon on the floor. So you can do some really interesting things with these. This guy's got a gun that I like the look of, so I'm going to hoover him into here. And he got electrocuted and he dropped his gun. And then I can drop that. And now I've got his gun. And now I can blast him into... Oh, I blasted him into there. That was a bad example. But... where did I send him? Yeah, I've sent him into there. So, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then we have these, like, timer batteries that we can set as well. So, yet again, kind of plug that in. And then... oh, got a time limit. And this is a work in progress enemy. You'll notice he's carrying that flaming barrel that I showed you before, just to prove that I'm not lying. You can shoot the barrel and damage him, which is nice. So yeah, there's a fair bit of intricacy to the wiring tool because it's might not be good in like direct combat, but it's very good for like setting traps and things like that. And then the last thing, you might have just noticed this. This was like a result of experimenting a lot with placing wires down. So, for example, if I fire this mode, this gun, or I fire some of these javelins out, which shoot little balloon platforms out, you'll notice that down here I've used some energy up. So I can pick energy up off the floor and recoup some of that energy. But if I get the wiring tool out, the wires don't damage me. They rejuvenate my energy, which is pretty cool. And in a similar way, use a bit of energy up. I can simply snip that, and if I pull on it, I get my energy back. Yeah, so you see you can do some interesting things, and the weapons kind of combine in fairly interesting ways. Electrocute him, tie some balloons to him. He's a bit stuck. And then they drop energy. I can pick that energy back up. And the cool thing about energy and electricity is it's all volatile as well. So if I shoot that, I'm going to damage him as well. So there's a fair bit of interaction between these weapons, and if you look at this shotgun, for example, it blasts you back. So you can do some really cool things with. Can I reach that from here? It's quite. I need to put some sort of auto locking thing on to make this a bit easier to use. There we go. So I'm swinging on this rope. And then I can go... yeah, build some momentum. And then... and I'm dead. So it's just kind of showcasing a few of the weapons. There's quite a lot more to these weapons than meets the eye, and I'm kind of terrible for making features and then kind of not showcasing the features, which is not a good idea because, you know, like most people want to like I suppose some companies, I'm not naming any names, EA and Ubisoft, but people like to sort of overpromise and underdeliver. I think maybe I'm doing the opposite. I'm maybe not selling my ideas very well, but there's a lot of stuff you can do. The shield's kind of cool, so the shield passively blocks damage just by being there on the screen, and you can hold it up as well. But if you place the shield down, it actually blocks where you are. So if I hang on, I'm going to pick this up, show you what I mean. So if I blocks damage, right? So I'm in a firefight and I'm behind cover, I can go drop that on the floor and hide behind it and shoot and pick it back up. We have ammo packs on the floor. What else do we have? This is currently broken, ignore this. This is fun, the sucker nozzle thing on it, so I can pick an enemy up and I can shoot it, obviously. So it inflicts maximum damage because it's like stuck in the barrel, which is nice. But you can bounce on enemies as well. So you can actually pile driver enemies, so I can like that. And then the cool thing is the rope that I showed you, this one. It's fairly modular, so I can get this guy, for example. I can strap this to him, strap that rope to him, and start pulling on him. Now you'll see the rope's blue, means if I let go, he's going to twang slightly like that. But if I do it into the wall and then you see it starts to go a little bit red, yeah, that means that thing's going to go flying, basically. And you can do some cool stuff with it. So say like enemies want to pick health up off the floor, you could like actually use health as a weapon and damage them with it. So yeah, you can do some interesting things with that. Let's have a look at another example. What other weapons do we have laying around here? The chameleon head is kind of cool because as you've seen, we can pick weapons up off the floor. We can pick up other things as well. So I can pick up health and I can swallow it. Kind of a bad example because I need to sort of lose some health, I suppose. I'll pick this up. So I can set this off, drop it on the floor, burn myself. There we go. So now I can pick health up, swallow it. Oh, look, I've got some health back. Or I could pick some health up. I thought that healed me. It doesn't. Okay, alright, my bad. So yeah, you can do some interesting things with that. And then the cool thing is, whatever you swallow will give you a sort of tertiary ability. So the chameleon can, I'll show you, but small enemies. So for example, large enemies. I'll just show you that. So yeah, whatever the enemy's carrying, I can steal it off the enemy. So this is a really good hard counter to certain enemy types. Maybe there's like an enemy with a really powerful gun or something. The chameleon's really effective. Medium enemy types, you can pull them towards you. So it's a really nice combo. You can kind of go, whoop, get here, bam. And then larger, I think they get pulled. Larger enemy types won't get pulled to you. And then these small enemy types, you can just pick them up, spit them out. Or we can fire them at each other. Or we can swallow them. And now we have the ability to go. I can swallow this bomb, for example. And now I can self-destruct. So you kind of see there's like some interesting things you can do there. I think this is really hard to pull off, but when an enemy shoots in fact, so I can do this, right? So drop this enemy over here, and then kind of lure him over here, and hopefully he'll shoot at me. He doesn't seem to want to. Okay, whatever. Okay, but yeah, you can pick up bullets and fire bullets out, or like this, for example. So I could steal that off them and then throw it back at them, and it blows up. I get one of these guys and then spit them out. So you do some interesting things, right? I can swallow them, and now I can shoot out little baby mosquitoes that attack other enemies and self-destruct. There we go. So I think the chameleon's maybe one of my favourite weapons. And there's some very cool abilities in there. I don't think I've shown you all of them. I'll show you another example. So kind of trying to mix as much interplay as possible into the game. So the javelin that you fire out of this gun consumes 1 energy. Fires out a balloon into a wall. But if you fire that into an enemy, it will lift them. And now there's a cool risk-reward thing where it costs 1 energy, and they have a balloon attached to them and makes them float. And if you shoot the balloon, it drops 1 energy. So it's technically free if you get good, basically. We get our energy back, as you can see. Now, cool thing of this is, now we have energy in its kind of volatile state, so we can shoot the energy to damage those enemies, or we can shoot the balloon and then it drops some energy, and then we switch to the chameleon and then we spit the energy and then it blows up. Or we can shoot a balloon, shoot that, get it, swallow it, and now the chameleon can go. And it gets blown up. So it's very, very interesting. That's a bug. That's a bug. Okay, that's interesting. We'll come back to that. And then thinking what other weapons we have here. I'm just going to empty my weapons. Pitbull is a very simple weapon. It has 4 very powerful bullets with very high knockback. And then it's out. And then when you throw it, it blows up when you throw it. It's a very simple weapon. Not much to it. And then we have the Morning Star. Quite like this one. So it's a very simple weapon. It's a melee weapon. It does 1 damage and a little bit of knockback. Oh, that is a physics bug, which we will come back to at some point in one of these devlogs, I'd imagine. And so I'm going to pick this up, and fairly standard, hits them, and then on the 3rd hit, it becomes supercharged. If anyone's ever played Dota, it's a direct rip-off of Slardar's Bash of the Deep ability. So your 4th hit is going to stun them, send them flying, and do more damage. So you can kind of prime it. So for example, these enemies have like armor, and this isn't going to hurt them. So charge it up on him, bang, into the spikes. So I'm hoping that this kind of demonstrates some of the cool stuff you can do. Various weapons. What else do we have? So I'm showing you the barrel, the rocket launcher, and then this is kind of quite a fun weapon that I want to show you. It's not in here for some reason. It's interesting. So I'm just going to use a weapon cheat, and these are basically like the 8 quote-unquote legendary main weapons or whatever that you'll kind of unlock towards the end of the game. So this is the swap copter. I'm very proud of this one. It's a really cool idea. So you can fire this beam at something and it will stun it and hold it still. And when you release the beam, you'll swap places with that thing and damage it as well. So this guy here, got him out there now where we want him. Secondary, you can hover, and that drains your stamina in the bottom right, as you can see. And then there's a little number over the top as well. So that number basically means this is the damage you're going to do when you swap with something. Now, if you can combo, you're going to do 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, 5. And you land on the floor, and the damage gets reset. So it kind of encourages you to, you know, bounce around. And if you hold the jump button, you will bounce off the enemy's head as well. So you'll jump a little bit higher. So you can do some interesting things with this. You can also, say I'll lock onto this guy. Everyone you hit through will get kind of, hang on a minute. There we go. Yeah. they'll get like knocked up into the air and damaged as well. So you can do some cool stuff with it. And then the tertiary ability of this weapon, I'm really happy with this. I think it's a very cool idea. But you put one of these portals down, and can you see there's a little screen on the bottom of the gun, and this shows you where you're going to emerge from. So for example, if I face this way, this is a bad example because I'm somewhere else, but if you look at the little screen, and you'll see the screen kind of shows front face towards the spikes. I press it again, and I appear there. So you can do some really cool things to do with puzzle solving here. So for example, let's say you had let's say you had like a puzzle like this, and you had a certain amount of time to use this bounce pad, and you didn't have a gun, so you have this, and then you have to get to that. Oh no, run out of time. So obviously with a gun this is really easy because we could just, oh, stop it. So with a gun this would be really, really easy because we could just stand on the platform and then shoot the pressure plate. It's the wrong one. Sorry, not the pressure plate, sorry. The timer switch. But let's say in this scenario we don't have that. So we can do some really cool things with this weapon, like, so see the creative juices are flowing because there's a lot of cool things that we could do here, right? So, and there we go, we can use the bounce pad. So let's I'm honestly not sure what's going on with the camera right now. I need to fix that. We'll come back to that. And then kind of one last thing I wanted to show you with this really is this sort of conserves momentum as well, which is nice. So I'll show you what I mean. This is a bad example because like we already have a ramp that we can use here, you know, to damage things. But let's say we think of an example. Yeah, so I'll just put a portal in front of here. So we could use the momentum of this ramp and then go through that portal, like Portal. And we conserve all of that lovely momentum and smash through everything, which is very cool. So yeah, that's kind of the essence of how that weapon's going to work. And then we can do some cool things as well. So if we want to do a ground pound, we just don't have enough momentum to do a ground pound, right? So say there was a breakable block on the floor here and a really short ceiling, and there's just no way to ground pound. We can put one of these portals down, and we will leap off here. We've done a ground pound. So you can see there's a lot of potential for some really interesting interplay between these different weapons. You know, we can, for example, you know, use that to bounce off of or whatever. Some things will get stuck in the Hoover nozzle intentionally, and some won't, so we can kind of choose what gets plugged in. Yeah, so obviously this won't. What we can do is put a bunch of these mines down, and then we could have this ready, and then we could swap places with this guy and then blow him up. So yeah, and yeah, another little interplay that we can do with some weapons there. This is kind of cool. So if the chameleon eats one, he can now precisely detonate one at a time. So you can see there's some interesting little interplays going on here. We can, yeah, another one. So say we were fighting one of these dudes. You could kind of clothesline them into one of these. So we could, yeah, again, we could blast one of these guys in using this, or we could twang them into there. Or my favourite is to just walk an enemy over. This is kind of funny, but if we get like a slightly tankier enemy, we'll get this guy over here. And he's a bit of a beefy boy, this guy. You can tell he's not happy. You can hear him screaming. He's not happy. He doesn't want to be picked up. Anger. And you can, with a stronger enemy, you can just go da 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 and damage them with it, or pull. Yeah, sort of pull things into it. I'm trying to think of like some other examples. I mean, this is a thingy look, so we can attach a balloon to it, blast it away, shoot it. We can put one of the. Oh, I'm just going to reload all my ammo and weapons because we ran out. So I can put one of these down. There we go. And yeah, so you can send that flying, and then you could, you know, detonate it over there. The possibilities are, they're not endless, obviously. The possibilities are quite a lot. There's quite a lot of possibilities. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do. Yeah, so what else to show? I can't really show this off because the enemies are very stupid right now, so there's nothing to deflect, unfortunately. These enemies fire grappling hooks at walls, and you can use that against them. So, yeah, maybe not the wisest idea to throw a grappling hook at the wall, you know? So I'm still toying with a few ideas. I'm thinking with this portal, for example, it might be quite fun to be able to, like, fire some bombs or collect some bombs in here and then spew them out of this portal. You know, I do want to kind of expand this weapon a little bit, make it a little bit more practical. You can do a sort of clothesline, smash through these, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so this is basically a little outline of. Yeah, it's just an outline of some of these weapons, basically. Just some of the systems and things like that. So, what we're going to do is we're going to return back to the dev menu. And this is available on itch.io. I do keep patching it. At the moment, we have a sort of very crude developer menu. So we have like an about section, our controls here as well, in case I've missed anything. Known issues, there's a lot more of these, but these are the main ones that are gonna. And our patch notes every single time I push a change. Now this is cool. If you've heard of a tool called Trench Broom, I use Trench Broom to create most of the levels here, and I go in Unity after and kind of doctor them. But basically, if you have Trench Broom, which is free, and my game, which is free, you can make your own maps, and the maps are like a few kilobytes in size, so you can just share them. And I'm just trying to think of. I mean, they're not going to look very good because they're very primitive in their approach. But let's go into this level, for example. So this level is trying to showcase the bubble bat and the chameleon head. So I pull this enemy into this bomb, and he gets blown up. That's cool. Or I can push him into it. Or I can knock one of the bombs into him, or knock him into one of the bombs. Blow myself up in the meanwhile. So yeah, and then we just have some other levels that we're working on over here as well, which we're not really going to go into detail now. But yes. So with all that out of the way, this is what I'm working on, and I hope that you'll sort of continue to watch these development logs, and you know, hopefully I can generate a little bit of interest as well for the game. So yeah, fingers crossed. Now we might as well just kind of jump in. Now I realise I've not actually talked about any development whatsoever. I've just been doing a sort of pitch for the game or whatever. So we're going to actually go in with a little bit more detail about how all the different systems work and things like that. So right now, basically, I'm revamping the enemy AI system. So I've had to research quite a few sort of GDC talks, and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've read a lot as well about different systems like behaviour trees, goal-orientated action planning. I watched the thing about how they made The Sims. Yeah, just all sorts of different videos. And I've really, if I'm completely honest, I've really been struggling to create artificial intelligence, quote unquote, for the enemies. I know it's not using actual neural networks, that's something else. I'm talking about video game AI specifically. And one of the problems is kind of trying to strike a balance between complexity, performance, and readability, just like all programming, really. So I've done a lot of research into this. I've asked a lot of friends, and I'm not ashamed to admit I've asked a lot of large language models like Gemini and ChatGPT, because at the end of the day I have a budget of £0, 0 pence, and without sounding tight, I have a lot of friends that are developers. They don't want to help me for free. They don't want to spend hundreds of hours helping me for free. You know, why would they? So yeah, I do use large language models to ask for help with certain programming problems. That doesn't mean I blindly put the code in and blindly follow. I scrutinise what they say, but it is really nice to have a rubber duck to talk to. And at the end of the day, it scours the internet for some of the best responses, and it can be confidently incorrect. But a lot of the time it can be correct, and it can be extremely insightful, extremely helpful. If you're a solo developer, I'd highly recommend it. However, generative AI is a completely different thing. I will not use any generative AI in this game whatsoever, because I completely disagree with it, and I just, you know, like, pay artists or learn to draw. There's one disclaimer. This guy's AI generated. I just put him in for a joke. I just thought it'd be funny. He's not going to make it into the final build. My God, look at those teeth. You can tell it's AI generated. But yeah, so just a disclaimer, everything in here is handcrafted. I've done all the art, animation myself, and there will be placeholder art. You know, there are, I think pretty much everything in here is made by me, but like there will be bits of placeholder art that will be getting replaced, and this face is one of those things. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, sort of getting that out of the way. I've kind of been doing a mixture of research, asking friends, asking large language models, going on forums, etc. And I think I've kind of come up with a reasonable trade-off. I've managed to kind of create a decent system at the moment. Now, one of the things that I will say is, obviously, because I've asked large language models, please don't look at my code and judge me. Like, I've just started doing this. I've spent 2 days on this AI system, and I'm in the middle of working on it. I've not refactored. I've not commented properly. Like, it's going to be horrible. Okay, so we're going to get past that. But for now, just keep that in mind. Don't treat this as gospel. I'm sure there's a lot of like ugly patterns in here. I'm sure there's stuff that could be like optimized out and improved and made more readable, etc., etc. But we're talking about the high level concept here of what we're trying to achieve, and what we're trying to achieve is reasonably smart AI that is performant. Right. So kind of with that out of the way, I guess we'll just go into it. I'm just going to open this up. So in here, these are some of the enemies that you are going to see throughout the game. Some are quite intelligent, others are quite stupid, different attributes, you know, different strokes, different folks, all that stuff. So most enemies are composed of the same set of scripts. So on the top level, we pretty much always have a rigid body and a stats handler. And the stats handler, you put in your stats, you know, HP, max HP, MP, etc. And it handles modifiers like, you know, HP modifiers and effects, RPG-like effects and things like that. And yeah, it just helps calculate damage, armor effects, but blah blah blah. You know, it just kind of centralizes it. Rigid body, team. It's an optional script. We have teams 1 through to 4. So some enemies might be like nomadic and work together to attack the player and other enemies, for example. Enemies in general are on the same team. And then chaotic. Chaotic enemies will attack anything, including other chaotic enemies, and be attacked by anything. Now you'll notice there's a missing script. Now this is because I have been completely redoing my AI system. So, old AI handler. So this was how I was handling AI before, and it's very, very, very crude. The idea is, it's not good. The idea is it would look for a bunch of, scour the area basically, and kind of like look for a bunch of potential targets. Are we on the same team? Can it be hurt? You know, is it a living thing? Does it have stats? Is it a child of me? No, blah blah blah. So we basically go for all these hit candidates, and then we go, oh okay, cool. So we found it. If we don't find a candidate, fair enough. And then we wait, and it loops and on a timer. It doesn't think every frame in the update, because that would be really unperformant. So it thinks on like a tick every half a second or something like that. And then eventually we deduce what our current target is, and then basically reset random attack delay. So it's just kind of resetting some timers, and then finally it performs an attack pattern on the target. And an attack pattern is, think of something like Dark Souls or Sekiro, Castlevania, anything like that. Attack pattern is like, it's going to see something through, so it might like swing a sword 3 times, or it might step forward, then sidestep, then shoot, something like that. And these can only be interrupted with a stun or parry or something like that. Otherwise the enemy will play out the entire, essentially, coroutine, and then when it's finished it will stop and it will think again. And this is about as basic as you can possibly get, right? So if we look in his behaviours here, you see it says AP, so that was an attack pattern, and he only has one attack pattern, this guy. So this is probably a bad example. So we're going to go into a different one here. So we'll look at this ghoul, for example. So he has yeah, he has attack pattern, fire stingers, attack pattern, teleport towards target, attack pattern, hop towards target. So basically what the enemies would do before is they would just find a target and then just pick the most random ability. So there might be an enemy over there and it's just biting the air, and then there might be an enemy that's stood right up close to you and it's trying to run at you to get to you, but it's already at you. There might be an enemy with full health healing itself, right? There might be an enemy behind a wall firing a rocket at the wall trying to hit you and blowing itself up. So basically, like, there's no decision making there. It finds the target and then they just pick random attacks, and it's the most unsophisticated form of game AI ever. It's just not good, basically. And this is kind of what I've been dealing with for a while. Now I realised to kind of get that vertical slice and demo out, I basically need to get the game into like a state where it's actually fun to play, and obviously making the enemies behave somewhat intelligently is probably a really, really good place to start, right? So you'll see with these attack patterns here, so we have a folder of attack patterns, and essentially the way these work is they inherit from base ability pattern. And the old AI handler essentially handles which one of these to fire, right? And then there is a coroutine listening to that coroutine that basically says, like, has this coroutine broken or whatever? If so, fire off an event or you know, say that it's ended, and then it can kind of rethink and then go back into this calculate target candidates again. Yeah, so these all inherit from base ability. So this is looking for any base ability patterns. Now the beauty of this is obviously we can have as many or as little of these components on here, and it will just look for them. And the components themselves don't act out, they don't fire, they're just there, right? Nice and configurable, you know, teleport towards target. Other enemies could use this, but they might, you know, yeah, so another enemy might teleport, but it has slightly longer downtime after it teleports, or it might telegraph that it's going to teleport for a bit longer or something. So it's highly reusable, which is nice, and it's all managed by the old AI handler. So that's all well and good, except it's shit. So it's just not good, basically. So the whole idea now is essentially trying to create a semi-believable AI for enemies. Now, how do we do that? Where do we even start? So I've thought about this a lot, and if you think without going into neural networks, things like that, because that's kind of more a mystery of obviously we can write the code and things like that, but when there's like a convolutional like matrix, right, we can't really like peek inside and get an intuitive understanding of what the brain's doing. So I thought, well, we could model this after how animals or humans think, but the problem is that we don't really know how animals or humans think, because we just don't know that much about brains, right? We're still researching them, but like the brain is like one of the biggest mysteries on Earth, right? You know, we know more about like the surface of the moon, and we know more about computers and artificial intelligence than we do about an actual human brain. So it's very hard to model that, right? So one of the dilemmas I was coming across is like, let's think of like a fairly like sophisticated kind of scenario for fighting, right? So say there's an enemy, and the enemy is, say it's lost some health, right? And the enemy, it wants to kill you, and it has an attack, it can run, there's also some health, there's a weapon on the floor, right? So what would you do in that situation? Say someone was attacking you, right, and there was a stick near you on the floor, and there was a police station that you could run to ask for help, but it was really far away, or there was a health kit on the floor, or the person was near you and you could punch them in the face, right? So you're probably just going to act on instinct and go, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. Well, that's great, like, good for you. But like, how do you tell a computer how to think like you, right? So this is one of the biggest issues that we're kind of facing right now. And the other thing is as well is like, if we break this down into like the order of how to think, right? And an AI agent or an enemy can kind of, it could scour the area, right? So say there's an enemy here and its field of view's here. It's like, oh, there's a weapon there and there's some health here. So what I could do is I could look at all the things in my view and then make a decision about what I need. So I can look and go, there's a weapon and there's some health. Do I need a weapon? No, I'm carrying one. Do I need health? Yes, I do. Cool, I'll go to the health. So we could scan the area and think about like what's there, then choose what we want to do. Or, so let's do a different scenario. An enemy stood here, looking this way. Now the enemy really, really, really needs to heal, and it has a weapon. So instead of the enemy scanning the area and then thinking, what do I need? It does it the other way around. It goes, I need health. And then it scans and goes, there's no health. So the enemy, there's some health behind it, and it has no idea because of like the ordering of operations. So it's kind of like the same thing. It's kind of like, do you look around and assess your environment and then go, what can I do with my environment? Or do you say there was no health here? Would you go, I really need health and there is no health? So you would assess what you need, then assess the environment and go, there's nothing in the environment, then act upon your needs. So which comes first, right? Environment or personal needs? Now, the short answer is I don't really know. I've queried a lot of people and things like that, and we've kind of talked about it. And from my kind of understanding is scanning the area requires a bunch of raycast operations, right, and things like that, and kind of filtering down. Whereas thinking about what you need is basically some if statements and Boolean checks and things. So if we think about what we need, we can massively reduce what we need to then raycast. But if we raycast everything, we're just doing all these like crazy calculations, right, heavy on the CPU, and then throwing half of them away because we've scanned all these things and it turns out we don't need any of them. And then we think, oh, what do I need? Oh, I'm going to run away. So we've just wasted all this time and CPU allocation, right? Basically scanning this. So this is like kind of a difficult trade-off of like, what order do we do these things in? So after consulting the god that is ChatGPT, we've kind of talked about this on a more high level, rather than the code itself. Kind of talked about like the ordering of this stuff and blah blah blah. And this is kind of like the thing that it's dreamt up. And I've scrutinised it. I've asked it, and I said I don't like this. Can we reorder this, etc. But this is kind of what we've both kind of crowdsourced together. So the idea is you have the thing, right? So we have like an enemy. It's going to evaluate itself. So it's going to rather than rather than kind of get component, grab this, evaluate self. It has a concept of self, and it's just going to like scour for itself. Do I own any weapons? Do I have armor? Do I have this? Do I have that? And it's going to sort of condense those into like lighter information inside of the self, if that makes sense. So we're kind of just like, we're just grabbing relevant information and storing it that's going to be chained through these different steps, right? So determine needs is slightly different. So determine needs is grabbing that stuff from self. So like, I'm carrying this, I have this much health, I have this. And determining needs is going to be like, well, based on my personality, you know, am I cowardly? Am I angry? Am I this? Am I that? Am I fast? Am I slow? So I'm going to kind of, I'm going to chain those variables, and I'm kind of going to decide like, okay, what are a bunch of things that I probably want, right? What are these things that I need, right? So is there anything that I don't have that I do need? So I don't have health, I can't heal myself, and there is health on the floor, so I need health. I can shoot a shotgun, but I don't have a shotgun. So I need two things. I need health and I need a shotgun. Okay? So those are two things that I need. Now the sense system, now that we've determined these needs with relatively little processing, remember we can just sort of early return out of any of these, and you know, you have like 1,000 enemies all thinking at once and none of them need any of these things. They're just going to jump straight out, right? And then they're not going to do any of this processing, so it's fine. So once we've sort of determined those needs, we can sense around the world, and basically we can do like a sphere cast or ray cast or whatever to look and see if there's anything important, but filtering just based on these. So we're massively reducing the amount of like checks that we need to do here, right? So we're going to sense objects in the world, see if they're important based on needs. What was we'll go back, we'll go into this in a little bit more detail. It's fine. Generate options. Okay, so this is cool. So basically, like, so based on this now, like, what are my options? So before I needed a gun and I needed health, and now we've scanned and there is a gun but there is no health. So we've decided what we need and what there is. So generate options, and now based on what I need and what there is, what can I do? So can I pick up a gun? Yes. Can I pick up health? No. So we return one option basically. So I don't know if you can see, but this is a fairly intuitive way to think about this, I think. I would appreciate it, by the way, if there's any experts on. I'm not claiming to be a good developer or a good programmer. I'm not. I'm average at best. If people have insights, or people look at this and go, "Oh God, you know, that's ugly," or "Oh, that's really an optimizer," please tell me. I'm not claiming to be a programming god by any means. I'm open to suggestions. You know, please go for it. So at this point, we can sort of generate a bunch of options. Now this is cool. So score options. So now out of the options, we can now put in a bunch of like heuristics and weights and things like that. So it's kind of like, obviously if there's one option, it's only going to pick that option, you know, go and pick the weapon up. But say we had a few options. So our options are run away, run towards the player, or run away from the player, or pick up health, or attack the player. So basically, these are the options, and these are all possible. These options mean that these are physically possible now. We know that these are possible because we've sensed the environment. We've determined things about ourselves, like what we own and what we can do. So these are options as in like, you know, oh, I wish I could fly. Oh, I wish I could teleport. But you can't do them. So these are all viable options at this point. So scoring the options, we're basically saying out of all these options now, which is the best based on what is going on. Okay, so we can do a bunch of things to do with like weighting and the environment, and also we can get in variables about ourselves. So like, are we cowardly? Are we damaged? Are we scared? Are we a certain, you know, do we have like self-preservation? Like, am I a zombie? Am I just going to run at the player? Or, you know, do I have a wife and kids at home? Do I maybe want to go and pick up a health kit and get out of here, sort of thing? So this is where we're going to score, and then finally, based on all of this score, based on all of these score options, we finally act, and the act is where we act out a full coroutine. So walk towards a thing for a few seconds, attack something by swinging twice, fire a weapon once, reload it. Once we do all of these things, this tick AI finishes running. We go up here, and based on the think interval, it just waits, and then it does the next thing, and then it ticks AI, and then it does it all over again in that order. So this is the fundamental of how we're going to do enemy AI. So yeah, that's kind of everything. There's not everything. It's kind of like an introduction to what I'm working on. I'm going to go into a lot more detail and actually talk about the code properly in the next video. But I do hope that you've enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget even to like and subscribe if you want to. But don't feel pressured.